Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And let's take a breath. With every breath, we allow ourselves to become fully present. With every breath, we allow ourselves to become fully present. We take another deep breath to become fully present. We give ourselves permission to be here. We rise above the monkey mind, the chatter, the to-do lists, any worries, concerns, anxieties, daydreams, hopes. We just lay it aside for a moment to be fully present here. We cultivate the space to listen. We cultivate the space to be open. As we expand our capacity for oneness, our willingness to live in and help usher forth the beloved community. Create in us a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within us. For we are truly here for such a time as this. We bless this time together, declaring it to be good and very, very good. Whatever it is that needs to be said is said. Anything that needs to be understood is understood, whether it is articulated or not. No judgment, no blame, just inviting in the light to dissipate even the darkest corners of consciousness. It is good, it is done. We get out of the way, we allow it to be, and so it is. So it is. Well, welcome. We're going to do a quick check-in, and I'm going to ask, first off, the people who are in the room with me, I'm going to ask 3 of you, volunteer by showing your hands, upon what spiritual authority are you standing to be in this class and learning this material? 3 people. Okay, can you swing out there? I saw Zelma's hand first. Give us your name and upon what authority.
Zelma, and Holy Spirit is the love of God.
Did you hear that? She said her spiritual authority is standing on the love of God. Marcus, I saw your hand.
Strength, courage, and sustainability.
That's Mike. I don't know if you guys can pass this around, or it's very light reception.
Okay.
Strength, courage, and sustainability.
Strength, courage, and sustainability. Did you hear that? Yes? Nod? Something? Okay, thumbs up. All right. One more.
Connection to the divine.
Connection to the divine. Very good. And your name?
Kim.
Kim. Okay. 3 people in the room. What is a vision for being here and doing this work that you're holding before you? A vision. Your name?
Every person is the beloved of God, worthy and a treasure.
Hear that?
Every being is beloved of God, a human treasure.
Vision. Yes.
I'm standing in the vision of you plus me, whoever the you and whoever the me, of meeting each other and becoming the oneness and feeling, having an experience of being.
Name?
I'm Judy Noon.
Okay, Judy. Okay, those of you who
We're
are,
not using that. Now we're back to the computer and it's much stronger.
okay, all right. So, some of you who have tuned in via the video, I would like for two of you to speak up and say, upon what authority are you here doing this work?
Unmute.
Raise your hands and unmute. Okay, Shanti.
This is Deborah.
Shanti, unmute.
Authority, can you hear me?
Yeah, a little louder.
Spiritual authority, what serves? To be, to say, to do what serves. In that moment, to the highest good.
Okay, very good. These are not working.
Right.
Okay, one other person. All right?
This is Deborah. Can
All
you
right.
hear me?
Yes.
Love of service to all.
Great. Okay, two people who are calling in or on video, give me a vision that's pulling you to do this work. Is it Reverend Sharon who is raising her hand? Unmute yourself. What's a vision that's pulling you to do this work? No?
Hi.
Hi.
The vision is that working together, change can occur.
Yes. Yes. This is good. Very good. All right. And I'd like somebody to pass a piece of paper around or something because I want to make sure I get
Anybody have an
list.
extra pointer?
A list of who's in the room. Okay, we're going to mute everybody.
Is that mic still plugged in?
And we are going to continue on. All right? So, we've been covering some good ground, and we're going to start to venture into some new territory. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. We're here for such a time as this. We're here to hold a vision. We're here to stand on a spiritual authority. We're here to recalibrate our own energy field back to a more original vibration. We are not here to change anybody's mind. Listen to what I am saying. We are not here to coerce anybody. We are not here to change anybody's mind. We are here to become an invitation. We are here to become an invitation that by our very presence, by our very energy field, it gives you an incentive to want to find out where we are and what we're about. And for anybody who's vibrating on the same frequency, frequencies of like energies naturally find each other. That's what synergy is. It's synchronized energy. This is not a battle. We're not fighting anything. We are not against anybody or anything. Quite the contrary, we are about a place of wholeness. Of wholeness. Wholeness with a W that fills in wholeness with just an H. Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Is there any question about what I mean when I say an invitation? Okay. Maybe you want to pull that up some. Pull the blinds all the way up. Get some more light. All right. Next week, we're going to start speaking very, very specifically about this concept and this notion called race. Just breathe on that. If that's not a place you want to go, don't tune in. And that's fine. Everybody can be wherever they want to be. But we're going to go there. Now, in preparation for our going there, there's some things that we need to understand about how isms work. If you have a piece of paper, you might want to take some notes, and I also invite you to listen to this again. And I apologize, I had an appointment I didn't realize that I had. I was going to prepare something that we could show on the screen for people. So I'll give you a simplified version that's enough to be able to just sort of retain in the head. Anytime that we start talking about isms, we have to remember that they have two components. Two. One is an attitudinal component, and two is a structural component. You have to have both in order to have an ism. One is attitudinal, the other is structural. The attitudinal is an idea. Okay? It's a belief system, and I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. The structural part is quite often what we call institutionalized. Institutionalized. Now, I realize a very big word, but I want to break that down for a moment, what I mean by that. Our institutions are places in society that we gather together to do work. We have all kinds of institutions. Name some institutions that we have in society.
School,
Educational.
government,
Law enforcement.
Law enforcement, government.
Medical.
Medical. Some of you who are viewing. Name some kind of institutions we have. Raise your hand.
unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm sorry, I'm on the bus. I'm thinking law enforcement.
Yeah, law enforcement's an institution.
Yeah.
What's another one?
The judicial.
Judicial. Yes.
Yeah.
We've got religious.
Sorry, I'm on the bus. I'm
Okay.
gonna be home in 10 minutes.
Medical, political, financial, sports, all these different kinds of institutions. Okay? Entertainment. So what happens is that this notion of whatever this attitude or belief is, I'm going to talk about in a moment, whatever that component is woven into every institution in society. Every one of them. So it becomes this place of continuous reinforcement. So you think, oh, well, we've made a little progress in entertainment. Whoops, there it is in the justice system. Oh, well, we think we made a little bit of progress, over here in politics. Whoop, here it is in the economy. And it's important for us to understand that because it has to be dismantled. It doesn't just go away. Mm-hmm. Let's say, for example, racism was a brick wall. And we've been building this brick wall for millennia. Okay. What happens if we change our mind? What happens to the brick wall if one day we just wake up and go, oh, you know what, this is ridiculous. None of these differences really exist. What happens to the brick wall when we change our minds? Nothing. Therein is the problem. Nothing happens to the wall just because you change your mind. The wall went up brick by brick. The wall comes down brick by brick. But it takes work and it takes effort. Now, this attitudinal component is based upon the notion of separation. It is based on otherness, and listen to what I'm saying. This is the very important part of it. It's not just otherness, but this idea that groups can be mutually exclusive. What do I mean when I say mutually exclusive? What does it mean for something to be mutually exclusive? Not everybody, that's not exactly mutually exclusive.
You're either this or you're that.
It's either this or it's that. You cannot be both simultaneously.
There's no overlap.
There's no overlap, exactly. So isms are based upon the notion of mutual exclusivity. They are based upon the notion that there are somehow these groups that are so disparate from one another that there is no overlap, and it's this or that. No in between. This or that. This is extremely, extremely important, because part of the way of dismantling the isms is getting rid of the this or that. And that's why it becomes too dangerous when groups start commingling, start intermingling. It becomes too dangerous when you can't fit people in those nice, neat categories anymore, because you can't keep the ism going. Okay? So this attitudinal part of the ism is based upon the notion that there are differences between people, setting them in mutually exclusive categories, and that there are inherent differences between these people. Emphasis on the word inherent. What does the word inherent mean? Born with? What else? If it's inherent. Somebody on the videos.
Look at Elizabeth walking.
Reverend?
She looks like she's in a roller coaster.
Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, unmute her.
Oh.
I don't think she
Okay.
Okay, what does it mean to be inherent?
Inherent, it means generational.
Okay.
It's generational, it's internal.
Okay. What else is it? What else does it mean for it to be inherent?
Unchangeable.
Unchangeable. Bingo, baby. Unchangeable. Okay. That it doesn't matter. You can't dress it up. You can't educate it away. There is nothing you can do. Case in point. Well, this is what he said. I could doctor it up. This is what he said. Malcolm X said, what is a nigga with a PhD? A nigga. We can see it with our president. It doesn't matter. There's no place high enough up that you can go where whatever those differences that people have in their minds about race is going to be mitigated. There aren't enough degrees. There aren't enough acclimates. It just doesn't matter. It is ingrained. It is innate. No matter how high people go, whatever this underlying difference is, it is still going to be there. That's what inherent means. Yes.
So when you say it's unchangeable, is that the truth of the capital T, or that's what you need to work on to dismantle it?
What I am saying are that these are the underlying assumptions.
Okay. Assumption that it's
Yeah.
unchangeable. Okay.
Well, yes. The fact that it's not changing is an underlying assumption, but the fact that it's mutually exclusive is an underlying assumption, for which there's probably no truth either.
Right.
None of this stuff is based upon the fact that it's an ism.
Yeah.
Is your first clue. It's not based in truth.
Okay.
Okay. That's that.
All right.
So what we have to understand though is how it is constructed. How it is constructed. So this attitudinal this part that says that there is some kind of inherent difference between these groups that is not going to change. Okay. Furthermore, categorically speaking, then, there are attributes that are assigned to these mutually exclusive groups. And you are deemed to have those attributes simply by your membership in the group, whatever that is, male, female. So if there are ideas about what it means to be male, that's going to be ascribed to all males. It's kind of like the benefit of the doubt. You are assumed to be this unless proven otherwise. Same thing with women. It's an innate assumption, or as we sometimes say in diversity worlds, it's an unexamined assumption. It's an unexamined assumption that there are these inherent differences, that you can classify and categorize people in these mutually exclusive ways, and that there are specific attributes that are inherent to these groups. That is what a prejudice is. A prejudgment. That's a prejudice. Now, what we need to be acutely aware of is that very few of us actually consciously create our prejudices or develop them out of our own experience. Most of our ideas about who people are and how it all got to be that way is information that we inherited. We inherited. These ideas were impressed upon us most of the time when we were too young to even know or have the powers to be able to discriminate and understand it all. And this, I'm talking about the anatomy of an ism, and it doesn't matter what the discriminating characteristic is. It could be race, it could be sexual orientation, it could be sex, it could be religion, nationality, physical abilities, class. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. They all work the exact same way. Every ism works the exact same way. Breathe. Now, this is where we're going to do a little paradigm shift in how we perceive things. You're going to hear me use the word sometimes that Malcolm X used to use a lot, called okie doke. The okie doke. Does anybody know what the okie doke is? Anybody want to take a guess what the okie doke is? Go along to get along. Anybody want to take a guess? Anybody know what the okie doke is? It's a scam.
Oh.
The okie doke. That phrase, and we've been bamboozled. To be bamboozled is to be basically sold a false idea that we have all bought into as the truth. That's the okie doke. Okay? And when you accept it, you've been bamboozled. So most of us around these isms, we just bought the okie doke. Unexamined assumptions completely. All right? This idea. Now here's where the paradigm shift is going to come. And this is why I call it the okie doke. We have been trained to believe that isms are about discrimination. We have been trained to believe that isms is all about certain people being oppressed or marginalized, and that that's what the ism is about. That's the okie doke. It's the okie doke because it obscures us from taking a look at what the real issue is. The real issue is not that some groups are considered less than. The issue is that some groups are considered better than. The issue is not discrimination. The issue is supremacy. The discrimination is not the goal. We don't create the isms just for the purpose of doing the discrimination. The discrimination is simply a tool. The discrimination is just the means to the ends. The discrimination is just the process that is put into motion in order to make sure that the other group is elevated. A lot of times, there's not even any intent to necessarily discriminate against people. It's like collateral damage in war. What is collateral damage?
It's the cost of doing business.
It's the cost of doing, it's the unexpected. So in war, for example, the fact that refugees are created, the fact that civilians, women and children are bombed and killed. Collateral damage is just the wake of the fallout. In Western medicine, we'd call it the side effects. It's just, the fact that your pancreas goes out because I'm trying to do something to your heart. Well, that's just the collateral damage of working on your heart. And we live in a society that believes that because we don't believe in wholeness. We are living in a society where that is acceptable. It is acceptable to sacrifice some part for another part if it's justifiable in your mind for whatever that goal is that you were trying to get to. Okay. So let's give an example. Everybody think about if somebody were to ask you your attributes, like who you are, the things you most identify with in the world. Think about what would be those top 5 things that would come to your mind. Just think for a moment. Everybody. You would say, I am, you put on the other end of that. Everybody have some? Okay. How many of you had on that list able-bodied?
I had hard worker.
Nope, that's not the same thing.
I had able-bodied.
Okay, nope, that's not able-bodied. Okay, anybody virtual got able-bodied on there?
Does wellness count?
Nope. Nope.
Nope. Okay.
You can have all kind of physical challenges and be well. We make that mistake all the time of equating people with disabilities and sickness.
Right.
It's not.
Right. Okay, I see what you mean by able-bodied.
Nope. Okay. Now, ask yourself this question. How much of your daily experience is somehow impacted or affected by the fact that you can see, that you can hear, that you can speak, that you can move, that you have dexterity, that you have access to your limbs, that you can reach or you can walk, or just like how much of your life is impacted by your capacities to do these things? Give me a percentage of your life.
100%.
100%. Exactly. So why do you think if 100% of our life is impacted by us having all of these different capacities, none of us put that in as something that we are?
We take it for granted.
We take it for granted. Exactly. And how is it that we are able to take it for granted?
Because we have it.
We have it, but how can you take it for granted? What lets us take it for granted?
Everything in society is oriented to able-bodied people.
Say that again.
Everything in society, all institutions are oriented towards able-bodied people.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't have to think about it because absolutely everything is designed with you in mind, so you do not have to think about it. That is the definition of privilege. We misunderstand privilege. That is, privilege is you don't even have to think about it. That it is so there for you. You don't even have to think about it. You don't have to define yourself by that. You can be able-blinded. I don't see it. I don't see it because you don't have to see it. Have you ever been injured?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever, lost the usage of an arm or a leg or couldn't hear or see for a while or whatnot? How did the world look then?
Completely different.
What did you notice? What did you notice then?
Well, I broke both ankles at the same time, and I lay on a sofa for 6 weeks and didn't move for 6 weeks. And all of a sudden, the world came crashing into me. My world was this big, and I had to have help to do everything. Everything.
Yes.
And I could do nothing but lay there.
Yes. Yes. Anybody can relate to that?
Yes.
Okay. So I think you see where I'm going with this. Okay? Now, was it the intent to discriminate against people who are blind, people who are deaf, people who have to use wheelchair? Was that like the intent?
No.
But it was the impact. Intent and impact are not the same thing. But what it is a reflection of is the fact that people with all of their abilities are valued more. They are seen more. They are held as the standard of that. And everything in society is built for and revolves around that. It is assumptive. So what happens here is that when you're outside of it, you can see it more. Does that make sense? When you're outside of it, you can see it more. Of whatever it is. Whatever the structures are that have been built in order to support a particular group, you're so in it, you can't see it. You're so in it, you don't even know it's been built for you. You can't see it. But the people for whom it's not built can see it crystal clear. They have a clear understanding of your infrastructure than you do, because they're up against it all the time. And then we wonder, well, why are they always talking about sign language? Why are they always talking about, is it wheelchair accessible? Why are they always talking about this? Why always? Well, what would you do if you went out the door and you weren't sure you were going to be able to use the bathroom? You know, what would it look like for you then? So instead of us asking the question, why are they always complaining about this thing? And why are they always bringing this up? Maybe we should ask ourselves the question, why am I not seeing it? That's a different question. Not what's wrong with them. They keep bringing this up all the time. But why can't I see it? So whenever people get into they're blind, it doesn't help. People say that thinking that that's going to make people feel more comfortable or feel more safe, when in fact it does completely the opposite. I don't see abilities. Well, then you can't see that I can't get up these stairs. Then you can't see I can't see. And I need I need you to not put this stuff in the middle of the path there so I can trip on it. You can't be an ally to me. You can't help me if you can't even see. If you can't see. So just don't even say it. Just like, it's not helpful. And all it does is throw your privilege up in the other person's face. You're trying to make them feel more comfortable, but you were throwing your privilege up in their face. Because you have the privilege of not having to see it. So, when it comes to dismantling these isms, the people who are the ones in the favored position are the kingpins. They are the ones in the position of power in that particular issue. They are the ones with the access to the infrastructures. They are the ones who can make the difference. People with disabilities could not have written the American Disabilities Act. Are you with me? Okay. Deaf people can't interpret. You know,
Can you say that again? Can you say that again?
Yes. Yes. That people with disabilities aren't in Congress. They weren't in the position to write the American Disabilities Act. The slaves couldn't free themselves. A deaf person can't interpret because they can't hear it. So hearing people have to interpret for the deaf. Are you with me? It's like if there's access that's going to be created, the ones who have the infrastructures built for them are the ones who are going to have to do it. But if you're blind, pardon me for being so frank, you can't do shit.
That's true. Yep.
I got my amen corner at A. No, get yourself.
Purpose of ally.
But
like an amen.
Yes. It's
it calls for the people who are in the privileged position to own the privilege.
Use the privilege.
Deaf people aren't trying to make hearing people feel guilty that you hear. They're just saying, let me be able to participate too.
Yes.
Okay? Black folks aren't trying to make white people feel guilty because they're white. They're just trying to say these privileges that you have. Gay people weren't trying to make straight people feel guilty that they could be married. They're saying, hey, get up off of it. Don't hog the whole thing. Share it. Make a little room. But you can't make room when you deny that you have it. You can't share something you don't admit that you own. You can't share something you do not admit that you own. So we walk around with such guilt and shame around privilege. And we don't have to have a lot of guilt and shame around it. Use it. Use it responsibly. Stand in it. Own it. To level the playing field. But you can't level the playing field if you're in denial that you're in an advantageous position. This is a different perspective. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. You know, I don't think I've ever experienced privilege more than when I'm in prison.
Wow.
When I'm in prison outreach, the level of my privilege is just up in my face. That I have freedom.
You can leave.
That I can come and go. That my life is valued more than their life. That my life is valued more than their life. And what it's like to level the playing field. To consciously have to waive my right that my life is more valued. So that when I go inside, I basically have to sign that I understand that. Like, they're going to do whatever they can to protect me. And that's very clear. People can't come some distance, you know, to me and like all the, I mean, I'm protected all around them. But if something goes down, they will not negotiate. If I am held hostage, I am on my own. You are not allowed to wear blue or red. Okay? Blue is the colors that the inmates wear, and the red is gang color. The blue and the red, those are gang colors. And the reason why you don't wear red or blue is because there are sharpshooters all over the place. And if it gets funky, and there are signs in the dining hall and every place else, no warning shots. They see blue, bam, they are going to shoot. And you don't want to be wearing blue. Okay? Or whatever the color is. But when I am in there, I am so aware. And how appreciative these guys are. That I have used my privilege to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not only used my privilege to come in, but that I have relinquished it some. That I have leveled the playing field. And I know they make it a compliment, but it hurts me to my heart when they tell us we treat them like they are human. Because nobody should ever be thanked for treating somebody else like they're human.
That's it.
But I know. You know what I'm saying? And we can get into the, you know, all those criminals and all those people over there. But the reason why they're locked up isn't really because they're so bad. It's supposedly to protect all of us on the outside. Collateral damage, once again. Doesn't matter. There's racial disparities. Doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter what their fate, doesn't matter if they're locked up for the, it's going to make the rest of us safe. The justification. The impact isn't always intentional. But once you see it and once you understand it, you can make the difference. But you cannot make the difference if you are denying the disparity and denying that you're in the one in the privileged position. And it's not an absolute. It's like sometimes in a more privileged position, sometimes I'm not. It just depends upon the issue. I'm well educated. I got 4 degrees. That's a lot of education. Carries me far. I'm very articulate. I can write well. That's a lot of power in this society, especially a society that associates intelligence with the command of the English language.
Wow.
And I can be in a meeting. I watch it. There could be a dark-skinned person right next to me who has said what I have said, what I'm about to say. They've said it like 4 times. And I may just be agreeing with them. And the idea will be attributed to me. And they'll get marginalized. Light skin has its privilege. It's like, yes, I'm discriminated against being an African-American, but being a light-skinned African-American comes with its other sets of privileges.
That's been my toughest experience, is explaining to people how they can be privileged in one way and not in another.
Say that again?
My toughest experience is explaining how someone can be privileged in one area and not in another. Like financially, you have a really tough time or whatever, grew up poor, but you still have white privilege because of these things or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. So this is the prejudice part. Let me talk about the systemic part. The systemic part is when there are all of these built-in advantages. See, we key in on the disadvantages, but the disadvantages are just there as collateral damage. So let's say, for example, we have admissions into educational systems. The fact that women might not have been allowed into educational systems was partly deliberate, but for the most part, it wasn't just exclusively to try to keep women down. It was to make sure that the men got properly educated, because there was the assumption that they needed to be educated and that the women did not. Yeah. We could go on up and down, like whatever the discriminating factor is, whether it's sex or age or race or religion or nationality, sexual orientation, they'll all work the exact same way. So what happens here is that if we have this prejudice, let's just say sex now. And if we had more time, we'd do all kind of elaborate exercises about this. What we have an ism called sexism, which means that there's this mutually exclusive. That's part of the reason why gay people cause so much problems. No, it is. It's part of the reason why bisexual people and transgender people cause so many problems. Because we have this notion in our minds that with a person's sex comes all of these ways that they are to behave, to be in the world. And what we call homophobia out there really isn't so much people being hateful against quote unquote homosexuals. The punishment is not being gender conforming. That's what pisses everybody off and makes everybody upset. is that you're not in your role. You're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. And that's going to throw everybody off. That's the threat. Because we can't keep this system if it's not mutually exclusive. If it's not absolute male, female, and you go mixing it up and changing sexes or being, you know, oh my God. It's against the very order of things.
It makes it so they can't perform their role.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, we'll get more into that, where when one group steps out of the box, it throws everybody else off. It's like if I'm supposed to be the breadwinner, I'm the man in the family and I'm the breadwinner, and you make more money than I am, what does that say about me as a man? Our very identities are caught up and tied here. So on the systemic level, what we see is that whatever that underlying bias or prejudice is, whatever that idea that we have about the different capacities that this group has versus that group, we see it woven everywhere. We'll see it in education. This idea of a natural superiority. Remember I said the issue was supremacy. This idea of a natural superiority of men. You're going to find it in politics.
Oh, yes.
You're going to find it in education. You're going to find it in economics. You're going to find it in religion. You're going to find it like everywhere. You're going to find it in the workplace. Who has what position? Who gets paid how much for what position? Who gets to be the boss? Who gets to be the top executive? Who's in the supporting role? Who gets to be the lead? Who gets to be the decision maker? You know, it's all woven in there. Are you with me? It's all in there. Okay. Now, the thing that I want to say about this before I open it up is beware of this notion about reverse racism or reverse discrimination. Now, it may be true that people are suffering certain kinds of prejudices, but there is a way that people want to falsely elevate everything to the level of an ism. And when you do that, you become blind to what's really at stake in the magnitude of these things called isms. So you might say, for example, there may be an inherent bias and prejudices in our society of this notion of like a dumb blonde. Yes, you've heard that, okay? But we haven't made an ism out of it, okay? It's like blonde women are not excluded out of educational systems. They're not excluded out of political systems. They're not excluded out of the financial worlds. There's not all these systems and structures that are impeding them from being able to get to where it is that they want to go or to do whatever it is that they want to do. Does that mean they don't experience bias or prejudice? No. But claiming that it's reverse racism, we have yet to have had reverse racism in the United States. I'm going to talk about racism next week. And race in particular. But we do not have a system where just because you're white, you're going to be excluded or you're going to be treated differently in a negative way just because you're white. It doesn't happen. Now, are there some prejudice against white people? Oh, yeah. There's lots of prejudices against white people. But we don't have systemic marginalization. We don't have systemic, because nobody's in the position of the power to do that.
Elizabeth's asking, what's reverse racism?
A joke. It's the okie doke.
I have a question.
It's a joke. It's what it is. Yes.
But what's it referring to, if she's asking?
Reverse racism refers to, and I'm going to be talking a lot about this. It's where when people are in positions of power and in the privileged position, rather than owning their privilege and leveling the playing field, when other people are starting to complain about the inequity, they will cry that they are now the discriminated against. They're the ones who are now at risk, and everybody's against them, and they're the victim.
They're not getting a job because that company has to hire black people or Mexicans.
Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, that's that idea that it's reversed. And they're so accustomed to their privilege that just being inconvenienced a little, kind of like that ability scene we were talking about. So you got your arm in the cast for whatever, 4 weeks, and you are pissed off that you can't open that door or you can't drive your car, that you can't bear the inconvenience for 4 weeks because you've had that much privilege. And that's what happens with these folks who have been accustomed to this much privilege, that they can't handle for a moment it looking like they don't have all the access that they were used to having.
It's the all lives matter.
Yes, it's the all lives matter. We'll get to that. We will get to that. All right, we started a little bit late, and I know it's after 1, so some people may have to leave. But I'm going to go for another 10 minutes just to pick up the time that we lost. Okay, so some of you are virtual who are new that we haven't seen with us before. But I'm going to open it up to the virtual folks first, or anybody on the telephone. If you have any questions or comments about the things that we've talked about.
Unmute.
You can unmute yourself, wave your hand, and we'll make sure you're unmuted. Or if you're on the phone, just unmute yourself and start talking. Let's do the telephone first. Anybody on the phone?
Marcia raised her hand.
Well, anybody on phone first?
Yes. Deborah.
Yes.
You know, since this is my first meeting, is this literally not the first meeting then?
Yeah, this is about number 5.
Who is it?
And who are you and where are you calling from?
I'm Deborah Thomas Smith, and I'm calling from Sacramento.
Oh, hey, Deborah. How you doing?
Deborah what?
Thomas Smith.
Yeah, I literally just saw the Facebook posting, I think, last week.
Okay.
And I saw that it was introductory classes. It was posted as introductory, so I thought this was the first one.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We decided that we're just going to keep this forum going through the elections. I'm going to have some more in-depth sessions, but on Mondays and Wednesdays at noon, we're just going to keep this going.
Oh, great.
Okay. And we'll make sure that there's easy access to the old ones.
Oh, that'd be great. There'll be tapes of the old ones?
Yes.
All right. Do I need to email to get those?
Yes.
So,
all right.
Hi, this is Leah. And if anybody's not registered or has not been receiving emails about the class, then you can email me at Leah, L-E-A, at innerlightministries.com. It's Leah, L-E-A, at innerlightministries.com, and I can put you on our list and start sending you the recordings.
Thank you.
No H, Sawyer, L-E-A. Thanks.
Yeah, and I've changed it kind of midstream here, where I really thought I was going to do an introduction and it was, invitation and all that. But we're really trying to throw it open now. So, let people know through your social networking or whatnot, if they want to join these, they are available. We're going to be doing Monday and Wednesday, noon Pacific time. Anybody else on the phone that has a question, or anybody who's on virtual?
I think Marcia.
Marcia?
Yeah, I was just, first of all, I just want to add ageism to the conversation because
Yes.
that was mentioned. But also I wanted to just say about this whole privilege thing. Just personally, I have a Latina daughter who's adopted, who has a Black boyfriend, and they both live with us, my husband and I, and they're in their mid-20s. And we see on a daily basis how they are treated so differently than we are. It has just opened our eyes so much to that. It kind of smacks us in the face, actually, every day when they get stopped by the police and we don't, for the same thing, you know. So I just want to thank you for the conversation, because I'm just feeling it in my gut, you know, like no matter how aware I think that I am, there are all these levels that still need to be uncovered in this conversation.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. And just living with the discomfort of the awareness, the end of the innocence, you know, is difficult. You know, and I apologize for this format because, you know, usually I create a nice little warm and fuzzy environment for people to be able to process and work through their feelings and all of the rest of that. And I'm realizing that I'm digging up a bunch of stuff. And I apologize for that. We're going to formally close this in a few minutes, but I am willing to stick around for a few more minutes for people to have that window to just kind of, you know, process and feel or share if they need to. And that includes those of you who are virtual, but I want to respect the time that it is, you know, noon in California and people might have to go back to work or something like that.
Yeah, I guess what strikes me, and I just think you just haven't gotten to it yet, but the other thing that people don't realize is, or don't think about, is that the more categories that you fall into, the more difficult and painful it becomes. And so, in other words, if you're being discriminated because of gender, and then race, and then sexual orientation, and then education, and then ability, that it does compile. It can compile and become sometimes almost traumatizing to the point of, you know, just being too much. And so I think that as you're talking about each individual piece, but then when you're adding all those pieces up, and I've done a lot of diversity, and we talk about the idea of it just becomes so enormous that people sometimes just opt out. They just opt out. And that's the sad part for me. And I just was feeling that as you're talking, that no matter how many times we do this and how many times we say this, that it just can sometimes feel so defeating. Thank you for doing this.
It definitely can. And it's part of the reason why we all have to have a sense of upon some authority that we stand and a vision that's bigger than the facts. Okay? So we're going to formally close this out. We're going to stop the recording now, but I'm going to stay here. And because I know we covered some heavy ground, and if people still have some questions or comments, I want to be able to address some of that.
So Reverend Lita says, just want to say thank you. The format is actually awesome. I'm incredibly grateful for you and this information. I've learned more in this hour than I did in my ministerial school on diversity.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. So
I'm stopping recording.
Yeah, you can stop the recording so it doesn't get overwhelming for people.
Bye.